And then it was November. The light started to make itself more and more shy as the days went by. Heavier sweaters came out of their summer hibernation, and all of a sudden, it was so cozy inside. A pair of socks and the tiniest little Carol were needed for daycare, so on a quiet Sunday, I started working on the socks for Iris. She wears her wellies at daycare almost every day, as they do spend time outside even if it's a little bit chilly. But we lost one of her woolly inserts that was keeping her toes warm, so instead of having to buy a new pair and wait for them to be delivered, Mama went stash diving instead, and in a matter of 2 evenings, my little one had socks to take with her at daycare. If you're interested in the recipe, I'll link the Instagram post down below where I shared my step-by-step tutorial for them. I have used one skein of tuku wool, which comes in 50 grams, and I still have plenty enough to use for contrasting heels, toes, and calves for another pair. Take it.
One, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I have absolutely loved working with this yarn, which was in my stash for quite a few years, but never had enough to make myself a full pair. This yarn is rustically beautiful. It's very dry to the touch, but it has a really nice twist, which I think would work really well for socks. After completing this project so rapidly, it reminded me how much I was in need of new pairs myself. Following a few recent incidents with the few pairs that I already owned, I knew that it was time to start knitting for myself again. Over the past couple of years, I've only been wearing woolly socks, and I do enjoy having them on my feet tremendously. But as my love for rustic and natural wool seems to only grow over the years, I've ditched out the superwash and nylon ones and slowly started adding natural ones exclusively. Which brings me to 1. I need to acquire more sock yarn, which I did, and I will update you on that a little bit later on. And 2, to announce the start of the natural sockalong next year. I know that using natural wool that doesn't contain any nylon might be controversial, as the whole purpose of nylon is to make the socks more durable. But as someone that deeply cares about my footprint on this earth, I very quickly started becoming less and less comfortable with purchasing yarns that were not, I think, respectful of the environment. And that's a very tricky topic for so many different reasons, because depending on one's lifestyle, budget, and so on, these natural options may not be for everyone. Because what's the point to spend so much time and money working on a pair of socks that is only going to be worn a couple of times before it starts having holes? Well, that's the whole reason why I actually wanted to start this natural sockalong. Maybe by combining the right yarns, tension, and therefore gauge, and maybe techniques, it would be possible to create a truly durable, both in terms of time and environment, pair of socks. In my own experience, and that's only because I'm not too hard on my socks, I've been able to wear my natural socks without any difficulties. Well, as I said, until quite recently, some of my pairs didn't survive a visit in the wash or a nail in the parquet. So all of that to say is that if you want to experiment with me and fellow other knitters, I will start a year-long natural sockalong in 2022. For the whole year, we will be using natural socks exclusively and share our experiences with one another. That way we could discover new to us techniques and yarns that would create nearly indestructible hand-knitted socks. Also, I hope. I haven't started thinking about all the logistics of the CAL, but as of today, you can follow the hashtag #NaturalSockalong on Instagram if you want to participate. And I've also created a natural sockalong highlight on my profile where I share yarn makers that do offer natural sock options. For a forager, November in our part of the world means mushrooms, and this year was no exception. Every Wednesday of the month, Edgar and I took ourselves on a date in the woods to forage for mushrooms. Every year we try to get better at it and learn a new to us species. On our very first trip, I stumbled upon a new to me mushroom, which is called Canterelis tubiformis, chanterelle tube in French. And I cannot even tell you how exciting it is to find a new mushroom for the first time. It's a bit like a treasure hunt, actually, except that you don't really know where to look for the treasure. We didn't consume it the first time, but took it back home to examine it further. But the following times that we went, we knew what to look for and we couldn't stop picking them. On one of the Wednesdays, we took advantage of the good weather and the beautiful woods around us to snap a few pictures of the wild Posy hat, which has now been released. It features the same stitch pattern as in the sweater version, which I've shown you last month. It is also knit out of 2 strands of Plötulopi yarn, which is the same weight as a worsted weight yarn. It's a great piece to use any Plötulopi leftovers that you may have, and it really takes no time to knit up. I'll add the pattern down below and will include a little discount code if you want to purchase the pattern. But as we started finding more and more mushrooms on that trip, I very quickly started getting too hot for my hat, and it had to stay in my basket for the rest of the trip. Before we continue with the knitting content, I'd like to share the sponsors for this month's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where thousands of creating folks share some of their knowledge and skills on all sorts of topics: embroidery, creative writing, pottery, you name it. If I'm sitting, I'm knitting, and if I'm knitting, I need to be busy with something else as well. That's when Skillshare comes handy to me. Not only do I get to do my work, but I also get to learn new skills. Some of my favorite Skillshare classes which I've taken in the past are Digital Illustration, Learn to Use Procreate with Jerome Vogel, Explore Winter in Your Botanical Sketchbook with Anne Betura, and this one kind of inspired one of my most recent designs that I will share with you later. Botanical Illustration, Paint a Colorful Garden with Watercolor and Gouache with Sarah Boccaccini Meadows. Skillshare is offering the first 1,000 of my subscribers that click the link in my description a 1-month free trial of Skillshare membership. Before we knew it, it was already the end of November, which means that I needed to get everything ready for my little one's advent calendar. I started this tradition last year and absolutely loved it. The idea is for a little one to open a little package every day leading to the 24th of December. So each day she gets to open a little parcel that may contain an activity that we will do together as a family, like sourdough ornaments, paper cuttings, Christmas cookie baking, a trip to the garden center to see the Christmas decor, and from time to time a little present that was thrifted or thoughtfully purchased from a small company, maker, or artisan. And then the 1st of December arrived. We went to purchase a Christmas tree and decorated it the same evening with ornaments that we collected over the years. this month I don't have one finished piece to show you, but two. I mentioned the wild Posy hat at the very beginning of the video, and here it is. It's full glory. I've been able to wear it quite a bit already in the woods, but also in the city. And yeah, this took no time for me to knit. I should probably wait it so that I know how much yarn I have used for it. I'm gonna do that right after recording this little segment. But definitely less than, I would say less than 50 grams of Plötulopi, which is half a plate. I would say 40 grams. But yeah, it took no time to knit. I think I finished it, I would say in 2 evenings, because I had to figure out the decreases a little bit for that one. In terms of construction, it's similar to my broom hat, which is, I should have taken it to show you, but it's a very simple 1x1 ribbing hat that is knit with 2 strands of Nutiden and 1 strand of silk mohair, and this one is knit with 2 strands of Plötulopi. And in terms of the construction, it's very straightforward for the brim, and the body doesn't have any increases or decreases. And then when it comes to the crown of the hat, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 6 sets of decreases that are done at different rates, which means that in terms of fitting, the hat is more, kind of goes more up, and then it's rounded on the top, which I think hugs the head really nicely. It's roomy around the head and more fitted on the crown, but kind of tall. And it's available in 3 different sizes. And yeah, it's a very quick knit, and if you've made the Wild Posy sweater, you probably have a few leftovers which you could use to make a quick little hat. Here's the Wildflower Path sweater. Finally found a name for it. This one took way longer, and sometimes that's just how it is. And there's a hair of mine in here. I've been wearing it as well. And what I love about Plötulopi and unspun yarn in general is that it's kind of rustic at the beginning, and then the more you wear it, the softer it becomes, or maybe, I don't know, the more you get used to the rusticity of the yarn, and then you don't really pay attention to it anymore, apart from the times when you overheat and then it starts to get a little bit itchy. But yeah, it's just, love this colorway so much. It has a few brown speckles, and I'm gonna try to show you more closely how this looks, just to get an idea of the depth of the colors. And I believe that that's an undyed colorway, which all of my favorite Plötulopi shades or colorways are undyed, and I think that they're softer than the dyed ones. It's a very simple yoke sweater. I featured the same slip stitch that I have used in a previous pattern of mine, and also in the Wild Posy hat and sweaters. I just loved this kind of herringbony stitch pattern. I'm trying really hard not to include that everywhere. And if you remember, in a previous video I've shown that I've used that stitch pattern for an all over texture and colorwork jumper that I ended up cutting in half, and I kept the yoke part, and that's the yoke that I haven't reknit. But I knew that there was something missing to that pattern. I just didn't want to have that slip stitch pattern only. And so on the last repeat, just before splitting, For the sleeves, I've included a little, well, less of the slip stitch repeat, so then there would be space to add a few embroidered flowers, and then I couldn't stop, so I added more on the sleeves, and then there's just a few of them scattered around, and I just love that so much. It's like simple, whimsical, minimalist in a way, not in your face type of embroidery and texture, and that's just what I love. In terms of fit, it's quite similar to my Wild Posy, which means that the sweater is quite fitted, especially on the sleeves. And I think this is way longer than my Wild Posy jumpers, just because I'm trying to make sweaters a la crop, so I can wear them over my dresses and high-waisted skirts, but I also wear pants, and cropped are just not the best for that, so I made this one longer so I could wear it with my pants and not freeze to death. So yeah, Wildflower Path is now out on Ravelry, I can never say that, Ravelry, and on my website, and I will include a little discount code down below, as well as for the hat, in case you want to pick up your needles and cast this on. In terms of yarn substitution, I don't mention that enough, because I always assume that everyone loves rustic yarns, or rather really rustic yarns, and I remember when I started my knitting journey, I would never have picked this type of yarn. I was all about the sleek ones, the very smooth ones, and yeah, it's just my love for rustic stuff just grew over the years, and now it's the only thing that I want to knit with. But I know that, you know, for many different reasons, we're all different, we all have different skin sensitivities and such, and that rustic stuff might not be for everyone. So if you don't want to use Plötulopi, you could use so 2 strands equals pretty much a worsted weight, so if you have worsted weight in your stash, you could use that. I would just say the advantage of using unspun yarn is that it's a yarn that is very airy, so you can see the little strands of hair that are literally coming out the one tube of yarn, and that creates a little halo, which I think helps to blend everything together. So if you have a yarn that has more stitch definition, you won't have that kind of fuzzy effect, which I love. So just keep that in mind. But then it's just a personal thing. So if you prefer patterns that have more stitch definition, definitely go for it. At this time of the year, I'm usually full of paradoxes. One part of me wants to slow down and enjoy all the festivities and time with my loved ones. But the other half cannot help herself and start dreaming of projects that she will start working on the new year. When looking back, in 2021, I mainly focused on sweaters. But in 2022, I really want to bring in more accessories, like shawls, which I haven't designed in a really long time. I've been wanting to create a mystery shawl along for the longest time, but never knew if that would be a good idea or not. But I think that I will go for it next year, as I already know which shawl pattern I would love to release. One sweater is already completed, and I have started another one as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Socks have been on my mind lately, and it's going to be really hard for me to stay away from designing new ones, as I will be playing with so many beautiful sock yarns. But the whole point of the sockalong would be to actually wear the finished pieces, and I know that if my focus is on designing, I will not wear the finished samples. So I guess I will need to try balancing the personal knitting and design work, which is always tricky. New yarns made their way into my home recently. Some of the sock yarns that I've shown you earlier, but not only. I treated myself to a few plates of the most recent Knitted In yarn update. And this one is tricky as well because I know that this yarn is only available once, which means that when I'm done working with the colorway, I won't be able to get it again. So I've been stashing it over the years very preciously. But I also want to work with it so badly. Paradoxes again. This time the will was so strong, and luckily I had ordered a few months ago a 500 grams of the colorway Throw Fast, which is a golden pinkish brown. And this new design will use the full amount of yarn, and I really hope that I will have enough to actually complete the sweater, as it is a very oversized and chunky sweater. Fingers crossed. And last, but definitely not least, a wonderful maker in Germany called Esther sent me the most beautiful parcel. It's once again an unspun yarn, and it's a blend of all German and Swiss breeds and Gotland sheep, and it's heaven. I'll be swatching with that very soon for one new design that I would like to release in the new year.